Hey, welcome, friends. I'm Jared, host of the Brokerhood. Man, I'm excited for this conversation today. Make sure you drop in the comments below where you're coming from, where you're joining us from, and as well as we go through this, we're live. So make sure you drop in questions in there too, and we can bring those out and talk through whether it's the business or whether it's the network or whether it is with our guests. And we got a special one today. My friend JC Timmons is joining us today, and he has kind of a unique story of really his background with the franchise industry as a whole. And so his kind of transition, so to speak, of franchise development to franchise consulting and kind of a combination of them. We're going to unpack all that together and learn from his experience, his story, what that has looked like for him. And we see this all the time. People, I hear a lot that people just kind of fall into franchising, and then that takes them into a number of different ways. And maybe you can relate to that kind of concept, or maybe you're watching this, you do have some franchising experience, you're from the industry, and you are aware of kind of what the role of a consultant is and does to an extent, whether positive or negative. So maybe you're joining here because you're interested and learn more about JC's story, how it worked, how it has been working for him, what that's looked like, and maybe you have a similar path to follow. So I'm excited to dive into this story as well, dive into this conversation. Again, make sure you drop your comments below so we can get those asked along the way. And there's also going to be a link in the comments that you can click on to later on, that then you can go get some more information too about both franchise consulting as a business, but then also BAI as a network, and really what's unique about us as a professional network in franchise development. So I'm excited to get this started. So without further ado, let's welcome in JC Timmons. JC, you made it. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome to the Brokerhood.
Not only did I make it, you let me in, which is always surprising.
Well, there was no one else, and so I'm just kidding, man. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for doing this and being a part of this, and I'm excited to. The truth is, you and I really haven't spent any time together ever, and really haven't spent much time getting to know each other. So I'm excited on my behalf, selfishly, to do that very thing. And so let's dive right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you really first got started in franchising?
Yeah, I think it's fair, as you said, falling into it. I think that there are a lot of us who qualify for that. I'm probably not too different with my background and spending time in and around franchising. Maybe a little bit different though, from kind of from a bottom up perspective. Anyway, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. And I've always been around, the SMB space, the small and medium business space. So as a kid, I was always around it. And as I got older, I didn't know what I really wanted to do besides something in those small and medium business range. I was and still am a dumb jock. So all I wanted to do was play sports, but kind of knew there was no professional sports coming. So I needed to do something, and knew that
you had that entrepreneur itch.
I've just been around it. I've been around it. I've been around risk taking most of my life, watching parents and grandparents and others. And none of it in franchising, by the way, just general small business work.
Okay. Yeah.
So knew I wanted to kind of get around, I guess Main Street companies, you could say, versus kind of the more Wall Street stuff. I'm getting old now, but now I keep track of my career in decades, I guess, and not single years. But when I came out with my undergrad degree, I got started as a financial analyst, actually, with a bank in Los Angeles.
Sure.
And we underwrote and prospected for the franchising industry. We worked with franchisors and franchisees and multi-unit ownership groups. Yeah. And we also launched an SBA group at that time. So all that connects directly to franchising. Of course, the SBA piece was 90% underwriting franchisors and franchisee work. So my experience, that's why I call it kind of bottom up, kind of beginning with how financial statements come together, and then the recruiting aspect of potential clients. And, this is back when FDDs were still called the UFOCs. So now we're really going back away, right?
Yeah.
But franchising back then was a critical part of the American economy in that era. I think it remains so today, and I think it's going to continue to be so. But now I have a consulting practice that helps that small and medium business category. And that includes, considerable time with franchise development work, BAI, of course, and working with franchising just kind of at a broad level.
Yeah. So then how did you go from that from franchise analyst or financial analyst, and starting to kind of work in franchising adjacent to a franchise development. And like, what do you love or did you love most about that?
Well, I think, yeah, the transition certainly wasn't linear. It wasn't a straight line to being on the franchisor side where, you know, I had ownership of a home services franchisor. And that really came through connections through the franchising industry of being aware of brands and timelines and kind of, you know, exit planning for certain groups. And my time spent really, you know, I'd say at the Kickstarter level for franchise development was as a franchisor. So I can't say that I did it in earnest whatsoever before.
So like you started that franchise?
No, it was a resale. It needed some work. Yeah, it was a little bit of a cleanup, a healthy company, but certainly needed some cleanup, you know, at multiple areas. But I've more or less been in sales, you know, all the way through my career. So, you know, when working with, you know, the franchisee side, with mainly we're all, you know, preferably working with owner operators of these companies, nothing really semi-absent, which is a whole separate conversation. Lots of white collar, blue collar investors, you know, seeking to make a new move for themselves or their family or their fund. There was quite a bit of adrenaline in those moments. So everyone likes closing deals. At least I imagine everybody on this call likes closing deals. So I do think if you're a deal junkie, you know, and I'm definitely a deal junkie, franchise consulting could be a great path for you. You know, they're important. Working with families, individuals, you know, versus large corporations kind of becomes, you know, more meaningful because of the enhanced lifestyle I think that we can help create, you know, help someone reach that next level financially or just having a better balanced life, I guess. That's all real enjoyable for me. But no, I guess directly to answer the question on the franchise development side, as a franchisor, I ran FranDev. You know, nobody cares more than the owner. So you know, there was no FSOs involved. FSOs are great. But I ended up doing that myself, and I guess from a franchising development perspective, kind of self-taught. Although, you know, it's not complicated. It's, you know, providing humanity to the situations and learning what people want and help guiding them through what can be a complicated process.
Wow. Speak more into that. What you just said, providing humanity into the process.
I think one of the most important pieces with franchise development, whether, you know, you're a consultant, you know, or FSO, or you're an in-house team with a brand, is putting yourself in the shoes of the potential franchisee and understanding that. So I don't know if calling it the humanity of the situation is appropriate or not, but it would seem to be, you know, having a servant's heart and a servant's attitude, truly understanding what somebody's looking to do. And what they're looking to achieve over the course of 1, 5, maybe 10 years, maybe multi-generational stuff. I mean, for instance, you know, mechanically, item 7s, we stare at item 7s all the time. Those are kind of weird. If you've never looked at an FDD, you have 400 pages of legal stuff, and you get to that item 7, and you know that it must be important. It's not. I think it's a reminder. It's not necessarily intuitive to everybody who reads that, and oftentimes very sharp, higher net worth people who are successful in their career. So it's just slowing the process down and really walking people through patiently what it takes and means to be involved in the franchising business.
Yeah, I totally agree. I you know, when I work with individuals exploring franchise consulting, I will regularly tell them, like, hey, you know, set aside your funding path to start your business for a second. Set aside the time needed to really launch this well. What we're looking for as a network too are individuals who really, if I could boil everything down to 2 things, it would be have persistence, you know, and then also empathy, which I think is what you're talking about, is that human element, bringing humanity to the process. It's so easy to get these like leads coming in, right? And just see a name and disconnect yourself from the fact that that's a real person, with a real family and a real community, you know, and they have a whole story themselves. And forget that, like, this is why you're in it, is to really help them do that very thing with what their goals
That's
are.
right. Yeah. So critical. And no, you do that enough times. I mean, you should do it just because it's the right thing to do. But then, you know, you end up selfishly becoming more successful because of that way. You know, so it's that intersection of understanding people's needs combined with making money. Nothing wrong with both of those, and both of those things come together And
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun. And with the amount of interest that I think exists in the franchising space, it's really how big of a practice do you want to grow? I mean, if it's what you want to do exclusively, wonderful,
Yeah.
do it.
Right.
If it's not, that's great too.
Mhm.
But I think providing that sort of mentality into every candidate that you work with, not all of them are going to go for it. How many couch surfers do we have in this business? Lots. That was kind of an eye-opening thing for me. You start running all your advertisements, whatever else you're doing, sales and marketing wise, and there's quite a bit of dead leads, as we all know, right?
Yeah, right.
It's always interesting to see the leads that come in at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And the trend line of that is, at least from my experience, you always have people who are, they might be true intentioned in reaching out. They don't want to go to their job on Monday, right?
Yep.
But then it comes to make a big decision and have some courage. So, it's part of the process of getting people to that point and introducing options that make sense and finding partnerships, because it is a business partnership between a brand and a franchisee. And that's a really important thing to remember. It's not one way either direction.
Right. Now, whether you're in the franchisor side or you're a franchise consultant or somewhere in between or whatever, everyone has experienced, whether it's dead leads, cold leads, or people just, literally this morning, I've been hung up on twice from people that just, whatever. And so how do you, JC, deal with that? You're an empathetic person who's trying to bring humanity to this. So there's a level of your emotions have to be brought in some way, right? To connect with them. But then when you receive those kinds of reactions from individuals, how do you separate yourself so it's not so like destructive to you, or that you are able to just kind of roll on and move on?
I think that's where, if you have that baseline in of your approach is the right way, that you're trying to provide solutions and customize solutions to families and investors, I think if you have that baseline, you're at a good starting point. Beyond that, it's patience, right? I mean, you have to keep swinging the anvil, I guess, so to speak.
Persistence.
You can't get into this unless you're willing to do that or can learn to do that. And that's why I said that deal junkie mentality. You don't have to be one right now, but to do it, I think you have to be able to adapt to that and just understand it. It can take a lot of conversations before you can really start finding your path. I mean, for new consultants getting going, it's not unusual for 12 to 15 months before you see your first successful win. And that's something that I think is an important piece. That's not uniform, of course, across the board, but it's happened before, and it's real easy. It's real easy to give up and quit after 90 days when you've had nothing but dead ends. So it's the
is that what it was? Was it what? So, well, I want to know how you got into franchise consulting, but then I want to know a little bit about what your story the first year looked like. Is that what it was like for you, or because of your experience, did you see a different kind of result?
I think due to kind of a deeper resume, just to those decades that I just mentioned, not because I'm special or anybody else is necessarily special. We're just older and have been around and have deeper networks. So I think it's just a matter of having rock solid networks and people that you can work with, and of course help them in return, from growing leads or just strategic planning ideas and those things. So no, to answer directly, it did not take me that long once I got going, but you know what, it wouldn't have surprised me if it did. And I wasn't anticipating that it did, but I've just done enough work. I've worked through a lot of separately with my consulting company, troubled debt situations and businesses and people who have gotten into trouble, and seeing how long turnarounds can take. So you kind of learn to have a heart with a lot of patience in it. So now mine was a little bit faster than that to really get going. So but I don't think it's surprising at all when I talk to current brokers, consultants, and others who do this. It's not unusual to have some of those pep talks, right, to keep people going. And I need them too sometimes, of course. We're all subject to that stuff. We all need encouragement.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So can you share a little bit about your story, how you got into the consulting side? Like, when did that shift take place? Why did you do that? Like,
just a natural transition from being around franchising, like I mentioned, from the very beginning of my career. I guess backing way off, just from a lifestyle perspective, for my family and myself. I have 2 teenage daughters and an almost teenage son who are nonstop traveling the country doing their stuff. So I need activities, and revenue generating activities that can be done anywhere on earth.
Yep.
So this one fits that bill, right? If it didn't fit that bill, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah,
right?
that's why we call it when I speak with people, I always call it's a lifestyle business, right? It allows you to kind of curve. You still have to put in a great amount of effort and work, but you can still carve it around your life.
But not to be mistaken with, you don't have to do anything business, right? You always hear that lifestyle business. Work-life balance is great if there's no work. If there's not any work, that's a problem. A true balance where it all just kind of blends together, and it's all the same thing. My wife and I have been doing this for a long time now with this sort of schedule. So it was a natural progression for me to step over, kind of on the consultancy side, just given the brands that I've been familiar with professionally, and spending a lot of time with franchisees and understanding the importance, I think, of really trying to place people in a complicated scenario. You get some age on you, and you're kind of able to look at things a little bit differently. And that I think franchising is pretty simple, probably to a lot of us on this call. But if you're working a corporate job and you're sitting in a cubicle and things are pretty good, and you start looking at franchising, that's exciting. Once you start getting into it, it's not all that easy. I think it's really easy to neglect the work that it takes to explain franchising. So I think I just have, like most of us on this call, if not all of us, just that interest and ability to help explain in easier terms what certain things mean, and define what the risk actually is and isn't, and then work on blending that matchmaking skills between a brand and a potential business partner. And it's an enjoyable process for me. So I don't know if that directly answers what you asked.
No, that's great. That's great. And I like that you identify it as enjoyable too, because you're hitting on some key things for people who are thinking about stepping into franchise consulting or adding that onto what they're currently doing or something. This concept of, if you either have or believe you can learn to develop the desire for the hunt, if that's something you enjoy, I think those things really can help put you on a trajectory toward.
I had a boss a long time ago, and I agree with you. It is a hunt, but he redefined my thinking on that, and the entire sales team in this process of calling it farming. And he didn't make it up, but it's a different way of looking at it. The farming aspect of business development.
I love
You're a farmer. You're a farmer. You're not just putting everything into the ground and ripping it out. You actually tend to it and spend some time with it, and make customized decisions. Depending on what you're trying to do. And I think it's a different way of looking at this, because just because somebody's they have a bunch of liquid cash and they have time to sign a multi-pack franchise agreement, and they're really smart and have been successful, that doesn't mean they're going to be a fit for every brand. In fact, they're not going to be a fit for every brand. And that's kind of where the hunting versus farming decision making comes in. And you try to put a filter on that before you even reach out to brands. Right. I mean, you don't really know. You have to let that conversation get going, but you just know sometimes from working with brands and spending time with people, you just know there's not going to be a compatibility fit there. There's going to be impairment. So that's I think it's a distinction that's worth noting, because we're not working with just AI here. We're working with humans and families and things. To spend considerable time with people to understand what they need.
That analogy of looking at your business as from a farming lens rather than just hunting. Is that how you view both the franchisor side and the franchise consulting business side, or does one kind of fit one better than the other?
Absolutely. I think it's how I view everything, all aspects of business through that aspect. There's no need making matches and forcing matches where none should be made. As I mentioned, I've done some troubled dead stuff for companies and people that includes franchise agreements, which have gone ugly. Those aren't any fun. That is not fun to work that stuff out. That's like, it's asset quality stuff. And that's the way I, relay these conversations from my background anyway, with franchisors when I'm doing consulting side on the brand side, is that you have to look at this. You're investing in an asset. And if that asset turns ugly on you, it's not any fun to write that thing off and get it out. So it goes back to the very beginning. I think it goes back to the consultant or your in-house salesperson or your FSO, whomever it is, on the farming aspect. When you take the time and really kind of create a quality situation, it doesn't decrease the risk to zero. That's impossible. This is a profit-making business. There's always going to be risk.
Yeah.
But it lowers it lowers the likelihood of you having a really ugly problem. It doesn't mean people are going to be successful, but it's just part of the aspect of doing this the right way is viewing it as, both sides are investing in each other here, and they come together and then they start moving together. And you want it to work. You're going to get off a little bit. That's life and business. But when things start to really, you can't see my hands going out, but I'm going really wild. When that happens, it's not good.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. No, I love that. I love the analogy. That I think it's spot on. That because the hunt is a one-time thing, right? It's you go, you get the animal, it's over, right? You move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of consultants and developers too, I think, that have been viewing or view it that way. And they do. They love the thrill of that.
Yeah. I'm one of them. I did it. I'm one of them for sure.
But the idea, the concept of what if you what would happen about your business if you shifted it and viewed it as farming instead? From your, look at your whole pipeline, even lead generation wise.
Yeah.
What if you viewed it more from a farming perspective of this is going to take time? But you have to, you plant the seed, you have to tend to the soil and be patient.
You're in Iowa, so you know this well. Being in Iowa, you know.
That's right. That's right. Being from central Iowa, we know all about farming. So then the harvest comes, and it can be incredibly bountiful, but it requires a great deal of effort from you as the
and it's just the right way to treat people. And I don't just mean the franchisees, I mean the franchisors as well. It's just the right way to do business. Yeah. And then with that, you usually have positive consequences, right? That come from that. You've worked really hard for somebody and put some real time into a situation. Yeah. It ends up coming back to you. It almost always does, in the name of referrals, or, then their cousin calls you because they had such a good experience. Exactly. I mean, it's just how this is supposed to work.
Yeah. And if it's a hunt, those things don't come back to you.
Not necessarily.
If it's farming, absolutely, those things can create new life there too.
Yeah. That's just the way that I do it. I'm not even saying I think that's necessarily the only way to do it. It's not.
No, it's the right way. I think you're right on. So
okay, that's good to hear.
That mindset. So I mean, there's not. Yes, you can find success with it just being a hunt, but if you are genuinely a person that does have empathy or desires to put the human, origin into this, then the farming analogy, I think, is better with the kind of business you need to build. So and especially, it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna require patience. Now, for you, from franchise development to franchise consulting, there's a lot of overlap, a lot of similarities. Have there been any new things you've learned about the differences between them, or new mindsets you've needed to develop in order to be successful as a consultant, as opposed to just development?
Sure. The thing that pops out firstly is every brand has a different method to approving candidates and bringing people in. And, we all kind of know that, but working with as many brands as I now work with, or we all work with on the side, I think understanding the process for approval is really critical, and I think it's overlooked.
Wow.
From a lot of consultants, and I think asking that question with the brand executives or the founder or the owner, or all the above, and having a meeting with them to understand how they approve people.
Yeah, and why does that help you as a consultant to know?
Is it one person who says yes in this process and that's it? Is it a founder who controls all the cards? There's nothing wrong with that, if that's true. Or does it actually go through like a executive committee of people voting? Because, I've seen startup emerging brands that have, 0 to 15 outlets, and it runs through layers of people on a yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Then I've seen brands with over 100 outlets, national brands, that the owner still is deeply involved, or somebody by proxy for the owner who says yes. Nothing wrong with that either. But I think that helps to enlighten a prospective franchisee's understanding of what they're about to get into on the process. It doesn't mean they need to turn it on and turn it off depending on who they're talking to. In fact, it's the opposite of that. I think being able to explain that to somebody, because I think it helps. There's a lot of misunderstanding of, well, look, as I just said, I have the cash and the time. I'm going to be fully engaged in this. Of course, they're going to say. Why wouldn't they say yes? So I think understanding the aspect of how that works, I think it's maybe a little bit of advantage as you get deeper into the process of is this going to be an approvable candidate or not. I think being able to understand that and explain that to candidates is important. So I would say that aspect of it, I've spent a lot of time on the last year or so, spending more time with the franchisors to see how their process looks. And then, for me, as you start to learn the personalities and the attributes of your candidates, you may know right away from what brand A told you versus what your candidate is saying and what they want. There's probably ain't going to be a match for a lot of reasons, but maybe with brand B and C there is. So I think it's just probably not a huge thing, but for me, I've spent a lot of time on that recently.
No, that's actually, I don't think I've had someone suggest that as the learning the approval process, or what's included in their approval process, as a thing to really narrow in and focus on, because everyone, when you work with a potential franchise buyer as a consultant, they're often looking for like, hey, tell me about how marketing works and how this company is going to help me generate leads. Tell me about staffing, how they hire. Tell me about, the ROI and the item 19. And they look for some of these things, but so you as a consultant, you have a tendency to go learn about those elements about every brand, which is important. You need to probably understand that information.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, equally
really narrow in on what does the approval in that process look like will really help you as a consultant succeed.
You just take this dude or this gal through the process, and you're going to say yes at the end, no matter what, unless they do something that's really crazy or checkered past or something gets uncovered that wasn't disclosed. Or is there more to it than that? And can I help explain this to this buying group so they understand the process? It sets expectations, timing, their relationship for the long term, I think, is in a better place because of getting into it that way. That's the way I do it. I'm not saying that's what everybody should do. That's one thing I've spent a lot of time on, though.
Yeah. If you could, for anyone watching right now, or even later down the road, they've stumbled across this, and they're on the fence. Maybe they're in development right now, or they're in the franchisor side in some way, and they're contemplating this transition into franchise consulting. What any advice you would have to offer them today?
Well, I mean, probably all sorts of things. I think if it's somebody truly new coming in from the outside, which is fantastic, franchising is open to everybody, all pedigrees, all backgrounds. It can work. I think that patience piece is key. I think you need to anticipate. You got to have working capital set aside, which I know BAI works with potential consultants on understanding how that works. You got to have the working capital set aside, and you need to be ready to have that servant's heart, I think, is the best way to help people.
That's so good.
And you need to be patient and understand it could take a year or more before you really start seeing things. But once it starts moving, it's like lots of things. It can start moving quickly, and it can be enjoyable. But don't give up. If you go 90 days and it's cold and it doesn't look like much is happening, don't give up. Keep going. You made the decision for a reason, so stick with it and see it out. You got to see it out for at least 18 months. Getting into it. And if you follow the process and you follow the tips and professional advice from BAI and others, you're very likely going to do well.
Yeah, that's so good, man. And how you worded that was spot on. The patience, the see it out for at least a year. Follow the game plan, follow the play. The things that you tell the prospective buyers you're working with over your brand. Follow some of that advice in this, and I think you'll be well served.
Always looking for solutions, right? Being a positive thinker, looking for solutions. And it's not just solutions for your candidates; it's solutions for the brands too. I mean, this is professional matchmaking after all, right? So it's kind of important to be a problem solver on both sides.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be able to identify the gaps for your individuals, for your clients, and then can you provide the solutions for them in those gaps? That's so good. JC, last question for you. What excites you most about the future, especially with franchise consulting?
I think franchising has a massive future ahead of it. It exploded during COVID, and I think moving ahead, all indications are Gen Z and Gen A. As they both age, are going to be highly independent people. It looks like. So these kids were raised digitally. They're being raised on AI, and I think brands that can find a way to speak to those demographics will be successful. And I think our role as consultants is to help these candidates get through what otherwise could be a complicated franchising process. We've already touched on that. But I don't think the amount of ownership is slowing down in franchising. I think it's going to increase. I just heard this morning on the radio that 30% of current W-2 earning employees in North America. I have no idea if this is true, but 30% of W-2 employees in North America, not just USA, but North America, are concerned with job security in 2026.
Sure.
That's a huge number to me. I don't have a benchmark to compare that to. That's a big number to me.
Well, I think it also comes from there's so many large corporations that you've been seeing big layoffs from the last year to 2 years. So
yeah. So I think all these things help support franchising, into the immediate future. It's a good spot to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. If corporate doesn't want you, franchising will take you, and then that will help you become.
Dude, there's equal risk with that, right? You're like, I don't have any risk. I work for pick your company. It's just not true.
Yeah, right. It's secure until someone decides that you're no longer going to get paid.
True.
Yeah, right. It's not true.
Yeah.
So good. JC, I can't appreciate you enough, my friend, genuinely, for your time and effort in this. And guys, if you're watching this right now, you've been listening to this either now or later down the road sometime, or maybe we're not live and you're watching this, click the link in the comments or the details below. If you want to learn more, if you want to at least start discovering maybe a little bit more detail about if this is the right fit for you, what do you know about the network, those kind of things. So click on the link in the chat, and that'll take you to where you probably want to go and get you some information while they're doing that. JC, again, thank you so much, my friend. This has been great, highly valuable to a large swath of our audience, and so I appreciate it.
Great. My pleasure. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, good deal. All right, we'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.
Because at the end of the day, Business Alliance, it's not about us. This has nothing to do with Brandon Clifford, the CEO, or Gina Johnson, our president. What we really are is we're just a platform. We're here to allow brokers, brands, and suppliers to connect with one another, to elevate their business, to really encourage people to bet on themselves and become a business owner through the business model of franchising.